Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Game Plan. My name is Gareth Soloway here at verifiedinvesting.com. So we're going to cover the markets today. Yesterday was a very intriguing day from a technical analysis perspective. I want to go over that. We're also going to look at the key movers today and what to look for in the markets. We'll cover crypto, Bitcoin, the altcoins yesterday evening, my time. They dumped pretty precipitously before recovering slightly. But it does look like the fever in the crypto markets may have broken, at least for the altcoins, in the short term. All right, gold as well continues to kind of try to grind up and negate that bearish pattern. We'll take a look at that. All right, over to the big board. Let's take a look at the pre-market action on the S&P 500. And what we have here, this is yesterday, right? So we opened right up here yesterday. Remember, it was basically a flat market to start the day, and then we saw the selling pressure. Now, remember, yesterday we talked about Palantir in the game plan in the morning and how it was gapping up. And I said, okay, what we need to watch for here is some sort of reversal signal. Well, we got that reversal signal, huge reversal engulfing candle, which is about as bearish an indicator as you can get. We'll cover the Palantir chart in just 1 minute. But nonetheless, yesterday we saw the pretty big sell-off here in the early portion of the day. If you've been watching my game plans, you've noticed that I've talked about how from basically the market opens till about 10:30, there's oftentimes heavy selling, and then the markets kind of go into sideways chop mode the rest of the day. Generally, institutions, if you're looking to unload, when are they most likely to unload? The answer is in the first hour. Why? Because there's the most liquidity. Investors are getting into positions, investors are maneuvering, they're putting new money to work generally in the first hour of the day. And so it creates this opportunity for institutional money to unload at the best time possible when they can unload the most that they can. And remember, we're talking about institutions unloading hundreds of billions of dollars potentially in the market, and so therefore they need that liquidity, otherwise they'll crash the market. And even so, look at the drop yesterday, right? Look at the size of that move to the downside. Now we chopped sideways into the end of the day. The markets had a small down day, S&P down about 0.6%, but it was more about where the reversals came. We saw high-flying stocks that had been going up nonstop, day after day, week after week. Palantir, Apollo Global, UAL, United Airlines, APP, AppLovin. Names like that had big corrective moves, and that can historically denote a key market pivot. And remember, we're just about a week away, less than a week away from that cycle date as well. All right, this morning, what are we seeing? We're seeing the markets initially were floating up a little bit here in the pre-market. Again, this is the 10-minute chart of the S&P, and now we've kind of come back in a little bit. We are still net positive on the S&P as buy the dippers are looking to buy the 0.6% dip on the S&P. All right, looking at the chart here, here's your upsloping trend line. And again, I marked off my potential downside target in the near term. And near term is probably in January, some point of downside potential. It would be right around this 56.50 level right here. You can see, again, we had a down day yesterday. It's not enough to write home about, meaning that the S&P itself, you don't know yet if that's a top. You have specific tops on key names, but again, you don't want to jump the gun and say, oh, the S&P is topped, because we don't have that signal yet. There hasn't been a big enough reversal, topping tail, or hit of a trend line to really denote that just yet. Now, did we hit the 6,100 level that I gave? Absolutely. Right here on Friday, literally to the point, we hit 6,100. But remember, I opened that door to the possibility that we could still go up and tag this level. Now, a couple of you guys have brought up interesting questions. All right, it's just because some of you guys lack this knowledge, and I want to explain it to you. It's a good educational point. But a lot of you have said, well, in the analysis that you give, you talk about how when a trend line is hit multiple times, it weakens the trend line. That is true, but it's only when price is coming down to a level, it's on an upsloping trend line. So when you're going like this is where it weakens, right? It continues to hammer, 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 hammer. It weakens on when price is above an upsloping trend line. When price is below an upsloping trend line, that doesn't apply, because every time you go up, you're actually at a more extended level, more and more extended. So that methodology, you have to understand, when you're hitting a trend line, it can be flat, weakens it, weakens it, weakens it, breaks. But again, that's when price is above. When price is below a trend line that's upsloping, it doesn't have that same characteristic. And I'm talking probabilities and data, folks. Literally thousands and thousands of hours of studying trend lines. This, again, would still remain as major support as it was even on the first hit here, second hit here, third hit here, because again, price is underneath and it's making higher highs each time, right? So again, that's really, really important how that is working there. So again, just to make sure you understand what I'm talking about here is that this still remains as heavy resistance because price, again, is making new highs each time, getting more and more extended. So it's running out of, think about this, it's a car, right? So if we use the analogy of a car's going up here, okay, it runs into a wall, it retraces. It continues up, it retraces. Now each time it's running lower and lower on gas as it's getting more and more high on the charts. And again, the idea is eventually this, about 8 to 9 times out of 10, you'll see this type of move to the downside. All right? So again, just want you guys to be fully aware of that. By the way, inversely, let's just do an inverse example of this to do some teaching. If you have a down-sloping trend line like this, price can hit like this, and it doesn't mean, okay, this is the 4th, 5th, 6th hit, it's going to break down. No, that's not what that means. Is when it's downsloping and price is coming this way, you actually buy those and look for the move to the upside, the breakout to the move to the upside. A great example of this would be some of my recent trades that I've given you guys, like on Wolf. Remember Wolf? Wolf was a great example where we had a downsloping wedge pattern. Let me draw this in here. We had this downsloping wedge pattern like this, and it was going like this, and it was continuing to hit, right? So based on what a lot of people think is, oh, well, it's downsloping, it keeps hitting, so it's likely to break down. No. Is when you have a downsloping line with price above it, like the inverse of this, it actually favors a big breakout to the upside like that. All right, so again, just to be very clear on that, again, these are nuances that I've taught in the Winning Trader series. I totally get if you haven't taken the Winning Trader series, you wouldn't understand this. But again, I just wanted to clarify that on the charts. All right, in terms of looking at the target here, guys, just be aware, the idea here of why that's my target downside move is simply because you have an upsloping trend line and then these flat tops right across here that coordinate right at that level. So that would be the most likely zone of major technical support on the S&P 500. All right. Let's get back into a couple of these movers and shakers today. Before we get into the key movers today, take a look at Kava. This was a high flyer. I want to just show this because, again, this is a great example of a reversal candle. This was on earnings. The stock gapped up, reversed, and then look, sideways inside bar bearish, and then look at the breakdown. Yesterday, the stock was down 12%. And it broke to the downside here. Again, upsloping trend lines with price above. This is the one that will break to the downside because it's upsloping with price above. Okay, so again, just going back to what we just talked about. Either way, key reversal breakdown on a high flyer. If we look at this chart, look at this chart. Look at the ridiculousness of this chart. So again, my point is these high flyers are starting to have trouble. Palantir opened up yesterday. High flyer, incredibly big mover to the upside. At the highs here, it was valued at like a $250 billion market cap, which is massive. They only, by the way, are expected to do $3 billion in revenue. So, you're trading at almost 100 times revenue when it was up in this range. Reversal candle, that's a major reversal there. We look at AppLovin, another insane mover here, where if you just go back to August, right? We just go back to the August lows, this stock had run up 575% since August. Again, since August, guys. That's not that many months ago. What is it, 4 months ago or so? And so 575% move, high flyer, absolutely. Channel, parallel channel, has now broken down. Now, could this see a buy the dip today and it bounced back a little bit? Absolutely. But ultimately, again, it looks like the fever has broken for some of these. And Apollo Global, look at that. All right, look at that pattern. Gap up and a close negative, reversal engulfing candle. Look at how this appears, and then look at the Kava chart right here. Same exact top being put in, and then look, sideways chop for a little while, and then the breakdown. Very, very common. And again, remember, technical analysis, folks, technical analysis is about looking at history and saying, okay, when this forms on the chart, if we go back and we look at 1,000 of these scenarios, 85%, let's say, or 80% or 90% of the time, this is the end result. So it's not giving you a definitive. It's not like, oh, this is 100% what is going to happen. It's giving you the most likely scenario, which if you trade off of that, you ultimately put the odds in your favor heavily. And that's how you can make money no matter the market, right? I mean, I could trade stocks, crypto, commodities, Forex, anything. Because again, a chart is not about the company. A chart is about how humans feel about the company, which means it's emotional, and emotion doesn't change. It doesn't matter if you're looking at the dot-com bubble in stocks in 99 to 2000 or the bubble in crypto in 2021. It's all the same because it's human emotion. And that's why technical analysis is so key, and it's universal to all different asset classes. Very cool, including, by the way, real estate. Real estate just tends to move a lot slower. Okay, couple other stocks here to look at. Oracle today getting slammed here to the downside on earnings. Take a look at this drop. This was a high flyer, no doubt about it. But again, it is dropping. If we flip back to the daily chart here, let's remove these lines that I had on the old charts here, and let's look at where the technical support is going to be. So we're trading right around 176, 175 area. There's a gap fill at 170, 175 right here. You see this big gap right there? But the issue is, if you go back to your pre-market or after market, what was the low right here? 170, 150. So interestingly enough, even in the after hours, this filled the gap, and look at the bounce that it got. It shows you that after hours action, when there's volume present, you can actually use the technical chart levels that were formed during market hours. Now, having said that, because it's already been hit, I don't feel comfortable playing that level. So what I do is I go to the next one. Right here's a gap fill, and then there's a little gap fill right below. That now becomes my bogey level, where I'm going to draw a trend line right here at 167 to about 168. And if we get down there today, that might be a day tradable level. Obviously, I'll be analyzing it in real time in the Apex Live day trading room, and we'll trade it if the setup is correct. But right now, that's my zone that I'm isolating down. Now, if we look at C3AI here, and we take a look at the daily or the intraday after hours chart, look at this. C3AI on earnings surged to almost $50. It reversed down to 43. Then rallied to 46 and is now trading at 38. What a wild ride on this AI stock. All right, so if it's trading at 38, we flip over to this chart and we say, well, first of all, this stock was insanely high in the short term. Like, what a move from 26 to a high yesterday of about 43. But now we look at 38 and we say, okay, there's a gap fill here at 36.70. So that would be my first my eye gets drawn right to that gap as a potential day trade. Now, to me, that would still be a very aggressive trade because, again, it is just a very volatile stock. I would be then interested right below. See if we zoom in on this, and these are the things that my eye catches. See this low of this candle, how it coordinates with this low? That tells me there's some sort of technical multi-factor support there, and that would be a very intriguing level around $35.40. So like kind of right in this vicinity is where I'm going to look at C3AI today, or AI is the symbol, as a technical trading opportunity. All right. Now let's flip over to a couple of the other big movers and shakers. We got to talk some Bitcoin here. So let me zoom out on this. I want to zoom out on Bitcoin, and I'm going to head over to the big board so we can kind of take a look at this. But basically, Bitcoin, again, if we're looking at this chart, what do we see? Well, the reason I zoomed out is I want us to keep our eye on that high. That's your March high from 2024, right? So March this year's high. And then again, notice how you kind of consolidated for basically 6 months, right? 6 months, and then you tagged it here, rejected, and broke out. So what that means is that if we ever get a big correction in Bitcoin, this is going to stand out as a huge retrace to the scene of the crime buying opportunity. So right away in my head, I'm like, okay, if it ever gets back there, maybe it doesn't. If it ever gets back there, that will be a swing trade level. Now, what we've talked about before is right here you have your 92 to 91,000 level, right? So 92 to 91. This is a major level right here. You can see you had your move up, and then you retraced and hit. Then you moved up and you had that weird doji where it went to 104 and then to 92 right there as well. So that tells me there's an intriguing level. Next, what we did here, and let me just erase these lines so we can keep it clean, I also found a parallel here from this high right here to these lows right through here. And so short term, today, for instance, I'm watching this 95.5 level. If that breaks, we probably test 91. And again, I would say as long as 91 holds, then you favor upside to 107 to 108,000. If 91 breaks, then there's really not a lot. From here to here, there's only little minor pivots in here. And that, to me, opens a kind of a trap door that it could go down. But remember, I look as a trader, and this is something I know a lot of people have a lot of hard time understanding, is that as a trader, I have to look at both sides of the market. So while I favor the upside still on Bitcoin here, because it's above 91, I also have to say, okay, well, what if it breaks 91? What happens? Well, now you have a trap door, kind of an air pocket that could take it back to the downside. So again, short-term bias is still neutral to bullish. With your, again, any sort of break here would open up the bearish side. But as long as we hold 91, it's okay in that scenario. All right, let's go to Ethereum here, guys. We'll cover a couple of these altcoins because, again, they are in motion today. You guys can see this is a great example. If we flip over here, and I'll come to the big board and take a look. If we look at this, right, this is a great example of resistance working to reject price. Here you had your high back here in March, which was when Bitcoin made that former high. You had a lot of choppiness. You can see this beautiful upsloping trend line right through here. But look at how we tagged this line, and then price was rejected. Now, where is price going to go most likely? Well, probably right here, right below, right around 3,400, there's going to be this former pivot. That should yield some good technical support. If it gets through that, you're looking at around 3,000 right in that vicinity as secondary support. Now, if it can break 4,100, now you're talking about really no major resistance until you get back to that all-time high at around 48, 49, $5,000, all right? But right now, respect resistance. It's hit resistance. Path of least resistance remains lower. You can see it's already corrected pretty sizably to the downside. Now, let's quickly go over just one other one. I'm trying to think of which one I want to go over. Let's look at Solana here. Solana is a pretty popular one. And if we look at Solana, again, you can see the beauty of Solana is it went right to double top. Here's your high from 2021. It double topped here, and by the way, the market cap was 50% higher, so technically market cap-wise, it was way, way above its all-time highs. But notice the rejection right at the psychological double top, and then you have this little trend line here. Look, every time it hits, it comes back, hits it, bounces, hits it, bounces, hits it, bounces. And so the question is, do you kind of just continue to hop along that until we get down to the more major technical support here at around this 190 level? And I could see it coming back to 190, to be honest. I think 190 gets interesting as a long opportunity. Notice where I'm getting that level from. Right here, and right through, comes right in through this area. So that would be a level to watch. And then you also have this upsloping trend line right here. If ever we get down there, that would be huge, huge technical support around 160. All right. And by the way, folks, in terms of crypto, just remember, if we ever get in a very quick risk-off market, then that's where there's a concern. And by the way, yesterday evening, we saw flushes, at least my time. I'm talking East Coast time, obviously. But we saw, Ripple flush, a Cardano flush, H-bar flush. A lot of these things flush 10, 20% in a very short amount of time. And you can't ignore the fact that you saw major reversals on Palantir, on these big high-flying stocks, and then you saw major flushes on crypto. There's this tide, especially to the altcoins. Bitcoin's showing some resilience here, at least for now, but the altcoins, they're definitely tied to this momentum trade, which is the buy everything trade, buy the hot stocks trade, buy the hot crypto trade, and just be very careful of that. All right, gold really quickly here, guys. Gold is trying to break above this little parallel here. Can it? We'll watch later today. I'll go over it in the trading the close session this afternoon. But it is trying to get above this with some good secondary daily momentum. So let's revisit this later today. Can we close above this parallel, which is this bear flag parallel? Let's watch and see what happens there. And then on silver's front here, silver is still below this line. Again, path of least resistance is like this. But obviously, if we can close above this level, it starts changing the momentum and the probability to a move to the upside. Lastly, oil, which again, I sometimes wonder why I cover oil each day. I know people want it, but at the same time, it's just not moving much, staying in the lower ranges. as we continue to wait. But natural gas, take a look at this. It's hammering on this upsloping trend line. If this breaks, this should open that trap door to maybe a move down to our buyable level, or at least my buyable level, at around 240 on natural gas. So again, nat gas watching this area here, but it needs to break right here. There'll be a small stopping point at this gap fill here at 277, but ultimately this remains my buy level. All right, guys, so lots to watch today. So number one, watch momentum stocks. How do they behave? Do they have a big resurgence? Do the buyers come in? Do the bulls come in and just say, nope, we're not letting this deter us from the big flush yesterday, the big reversal engulfing candles that we saw yesterday? Or do we see continued weakness in those names here as we inch closer to that key cycle date? All right, so that's number one. Number two, let's keep an eye on the crypto markets. How do they behave throughout the course of the day? What if the stock market sells? What if these momentum stocks sell? Do we see more selling pressure there? And then obviously on gold, let's keep an eye. Do we break above this key level, which could flip the script a little bit from being more bearish to more neutral, or even taking a small bullish bias based on probability? I'll update you guys later at 3:55 in Trading the Close. You guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you for supporting us. I'll see you tomorrow or later. Take care.